I've got to put a little presentation together, but I noticed one of the running themes, which is great, is hearing people's stories of how they get there. And I think when you're young and you're just starting out in this business, you're kind of like lost a little bit. Like, what do I do? Where do I go? I don't, know what my steps are. And I want to be like them, but I don't. And it's great to hear everyone's story because you'll notice there's running themes. And these running themes you're going to see in my presentation too, much like everybody else's stories. Mine is not that different. I've just been around a lot longer. I was one of those Victorian babies. Oh, I wasn't. I'm just teasing you, Mark. I want to thank JAM for inviting me here to Ireland. It's my first trip to Ireland. I'm glad. Thank you all for having me. The closest I ever got to Ireland was Lucky Charms cereal. So they're magically delicious. But that's about as close as I ever got to Ireland. I always wanted to come here. My family is from, if you trace us all the way back, we're from Scotland and England, but we migrated quickly through Ireland to get to the new territories because obviously we were crooks. So, just a little history on the Hickses. So let's start. I'm going to tell you the 5 things I've learned since I've come to Ireland, and that is, you drink a lot of Guinness. I had never had it, and I thought, oh, I'll try it. I've never had it, and it's actually in the States, it's not very good. But here, oh my God. So after 7 of these, I put this presentation together for you. So please excuse any mistakes that happen in it. Here we go. So I thought, oh, I need a theme. We're storytellers, that's what we do best. We tell stories. So I thought, the theme. So I called mine Doors. Mostly because I like a door, and you got a lot of them. And people go in and out of them. So doors, I thought was a good one. Why not? Because basically, when you're going through life, you're looking for those doors. You're looking for the places that something opens up and you translate. Because you know what? Gone are the days where we go work for one company and we end up with a pension. A lot of our parents did that. They ended up with their pension and their gold watch, or they're living on the dole. I don't know. But a lot of parents, and they didn't understand, especially my parents, did not quite understand this new world. So they worried a lot. So I'm going to start out. Basically, I was born, like all of you. Aww. That's not a picture of me. I had to take that off the internet because my parents took no pictures of me. I was the last born child. They were tired. My brother and sister, thousands of pictures. Me and my brother, you'll see it. It's this picture. We went to Disneyland a lot. Whoops, here we go. We went to Disneyland a lot. I'm the one circled. Aw, yeah, my mom should have started worrying then, not when I turned 20. But there we are at Disneyland. My family loved Disneyland. We never went on a vacation, went to Disneyland. My mom and dad were like, why should we take a vacation? Disneyland, you get a vacation in a day. But actually, that's not the full truth. I'll get to that in a little bit. So as I grew up, I always drew. And I was actually a very creative child. My parents had no idea what to do. My dad was an engineer. My mother worked at a department store. And they just looked at me like, we got the last one is the weird one, right? The crazy one. And you all know that, right? Don't your parents look like, really? That's what, you can't do these other things? So I was the weird child. I got accepted into CalArts, but they couldn't afford it. They knew I wanted to draw, and I said I wanted to become a children's book illustrator. That was my dream, because at the time, there's really only 3 studios. There was the Disney studio, who did, of course, it was Disney, and then there were animation for television. That was Hanna-Barbera and Filmation. Those were the studios. I did not come into a world where there was a plethora, as there is today, of studios and where to work. It was just basically 3. So I didn't get into CalArts, but I did go to a state school called State Fullerton. I'm from Orange County. If anyone knows LA, there's a place called Orange County. Nobody wants to go to it because it was very conservative. But I went to this school, and it was a great school. It gave me a great foundation in drawing and art in general. So I went to Cal State Fullerton, again, trying to become a children's book illustrator. At the time of my coming of age, of learning and going through all the classes, I turned to my parents and said, I want to be a children's book illustrator. And my parents looked at me and said, no, we want you to be either, while I'm at Cal State, I put myself through school by working, because I couldn't afford the college, and it was a state college, so it was very cheap. I put myself through school by working at Disneyland on the Jungle Cruise. So I say, if you ever come to California, work at Disneyland. It's a great job. Welcome aboard the Leaky Tiki. My name's Russ, and I'll be your skipper and guide for the next 3 days and 49 nights. But I'll tell you, one of the great things about Disneyland is at that time, the people who work with you, John Lasseter worked there. We worked on the Jungle Cruise together, and those are the people you don't realize. He was not John Lasseter then, right? He was just John, the guy I worked with, who told as many bad jokes as I did. Mine were better. Anyway, I met John. I finally got to meet him again, but when we were old, and we had an event, and I met him, and I said, "Oh, I worked on Jungle Cruise too," and he goes, "Oh, no, I remember." My parents thought I should be an actor or a lawyer. Theme, right? Be an actor or a lawyer. I don't know how those two go together, except for they both held their hands out like this. I found those pictures on the internet. The internet's amazing, isn't it? Anyway, they wanted me to be an actor or a lawyer, and I was like, I can't. Really? I can't act. And I'm not a lawyer. My brother's a lawyer. I'm most happiest man I've ever met. Never met a happy lawyer. But I said I wanted to. So my parents were like, "You're going to do children's books? No, you're going to go into animation." And we happen to have a connection. My grandfather, so now my story gets better. My grandfather was a great man. He came to the, his family were farmers. He became a self-taught engineer. He worked for National Nabisco Company, which is Nabisco, and he built factories around the country. And while he was off building factories around the country and the mechanisms to bake cookies, my grandmother had an affair with the president of Nabisco. So that ended that job, and he moved to California. That's how we got to California, from New York to California quickly. So they moved to California, and they set up shop. He set up an engineering shop, and at that time, he invented the machine like this. I couldn't find a picture of what he created, but it's basically a milling machine that created very small parts for the airline industry. And at that time, World War II started, and his business bloomed, and he became very wealthy and became very entrenched into a new world, and he started hanging out, as all people with a lot of money, with famous people. And so he hung out with Ward Kimball, Ollie Johnson, Walt Disney, because they had a fascination with trains, and my grandfather's hobby was building trains. He had a machine shop in his backyard. We used to go into it. It smelled really great. But he would mill all the parts for these model trains he built. He'd draw the schematics out, and then he would mill and make the train. So Walt, he loved trains, and Ward, so they all got together, and my grandfather, and they'd have this little club meeting, and they'd go to each other's houses. And as a child, I remember going to Ollie Johnson's house, and they had a really great layout in their backyard, and we would ride. That's a picture of kids riding the train. I don't know why they let the kids ride in the front. It's, back then they didn't care. You died. We got another one. But so we went to they built trains. We rode around, and Ollie Johnson, I remember going into his office, and it had a animation desk and a big map of the moon. And I thought, the moon's really big. But wow, what a great job that you could just sit here and ride trains. And so all of that was in my childhood. And we'd go to Disneyland. I had no idea. The reason we went was I thought that was our family vacation. My brother and I was running around Disneyland enjoying ourselves. My parents were visiting their friends. They were visiting Ward Kimball. So I know, my parents. That's why I go to therapy. If you want, we can talk afterwards. It's not been pretty. But finally, I'm 22, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, we know Ward Kimball." Really? Thanks. Anyway, but they introduced me to Ward, and they say, "We don't know if you have any talent. You could be just a big loser, and we don't want to lose a child. So we're going to meet you. You're going to go talk to Ward Kimball." There's Ward, and he was funny. And I went up to his house. I drugged my big we had portfolios back then, and they were big. And I drug it up there, and I'm like, "I did this in life drawing." And he was so nice. He said, "Let's go look at the trains." And so as we walked around, his incredible yard with all these trains. He started telling me, you know, kid, you have the talent, and I goes, I wish I could help you more but I'm going to give you as much advice as I can do. He goes, you know, the Disney studio is not at a really good point right now. They were doing Black Cauldron. And it was right after Don Bluth had left. So the company was kind of in a little bit of a turmoil. And he's like, they're not in a good place, but I'm going to write you a letter of recommendation, and we're going to send your portfolio in. But he goes, look, they might not hire you, even with me, because I'm not really in great, just because I'm one of the old guys doesn't mean I've got any pull. But he goes, these are the things I want you to do. I want you to draw every day. Go out and draw every day. I want you to attend classes. Don't think that you went to college and you got it done. Attend more classes. He goes, the union gives classes every night. He goes, also Hanna-Barbera, believe it or not, on Thursday nights does a lecture series. He says, go to that and get involved with the community, and this will help you get to where you need to go. And I said, great. So he gave me a lot of fantastic advice. I did send my portfolio to Disney with his letter of recommendation, and a wonderful letter, I have to say, that I typed, dear whom it may concern at Disney, looking at portfolios. And I got a rejection letter on Christmas Eve. We don't want you. Oh, but the story gets better. So there's good old Ward. Here's what Ward's famous for. He was one of the 9 old men. But his greatest work, he loved things like he won an Oscar for Toot, Whistle, Plunk, and Boom. He was avant-garde. He was doing experimental animation before everybody else was, and he was just a crazy wild man. And I know why my mother loved him, because he loved the ladies. So he told me all of that, and I took his advice, and I started taking my portfolio around. He said, go on interviews. So I went to an interview, and I interviewed with this man, Rick Gonzalez. And this is a young picture of him. When I met him, he was much older. I couldn't find an old picture of him. He has since passed away, but Rick was my first mentor. He was an incredible man, and I went and interviewed with him. He was head of character design at Ruby Spears. I don't know if anyone remembers Ruby Spears, but they were hooked to Hanna-Barbera, and Ken and Joe Ruby had invented Scooby-Doo. That was their big claim to fame. So then they broke off and formed a studio called Ruby Spears, and they tend to do more of the toyetic shows for television, while Hanna-Barbera stayed true to the Hanna-Barbera characters and what they were working on, the Smurfs. But we would get leftover work, whatever Hanna-Barbera can do, it's flow over to Ruby Spears. And I met Rick, and he's like, I'm going to give you some advice. I'm like, great, I get more advice. He goes, you got a good portfolio, but what now I want you to do, I want you to go to the zoo. He goes, you don't have enough animal drawings. I want you to go to the zoo. He goes, we're not hiring, by the way, right now. Also, at the time I go to an interview, the union, it had become a strike. Everyone was on strike. There were no jobs. You couldn't get a job because everyone was on strike. The whole industry shut down because they were striking because all the animation was being sent overseas, which was the bad place at that time. Not anymore. But back then it was like, oh my God, they're taking American jobs and giving them away. So Rick said, go to the zoo and draw a lot. So I took his advice and went to the zoo. But I'm telling you, the first thing I'm going to tell you, mentorship is the most important thing you're going to learn from me in your life. Find a mentor in the business, someone older and wiser that you can reach out to. People believe, I know you're all, when you're young, I was the same way. I can't talk to these people. I remember my mom when I was like hiding behind there. I didn't even know how to talk. I was afraid, but having a mentor will do you 100 times what you can do on yourself. We've already been through it, so reach out, find a mentor. People love to help. They really do. It makes people feel good to help, and they love helping young people because, we were all you. All of us were you. So we understand what you're going through and what you feel like, and so find a mentor. And by the way, there's a great quote from Ben Franklin or Confucius. They argue about who came up with it, but tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, but involve me and I learn. And that's what a good mentor does, is involve you and help you through the process of life. So Rick Gonzalez became my mentor. After Ward was my mentor to get me to Rick, Rick became my mentor. And so I went to the zoo, sketched a lot, and then I came back and also I worked as a chauffeur. Look, you got to do a lot of crappy jobs in this world. I worked as a chauffeur for a 56-year-old man and his 25-year-old girlfriend in Beverly Hills. That's another book that I will write on retirement. But I worked as a chauffeur. That's not me, by the way, but it could be. with a good plastic surgeon. Then, but I got the job at Ruby Spears because I came back to Rick a year later after the strike settled and everything. I came back to Rick and I said, can I interview again? And he looked at me and said, what? You're the first person who's ever done this. He goes, most people don't take any of my advice. You took all my advice. And then you came, he goes, of course I'm going to give you a job. Because you took my advice, you did exactly what and I went through. I went to the zoo, I go to the union. He's like, you took everything and brought it back. He goes, I've never had anyone do that in my whole career. And so he hired me in and he became my mentor. And I wasn't ready for it. I was literally, I can draw, I'm an artist, that's what I studied to be, but I was only, a utility player. I was not like a fantastic, had my own style. I was really good at mimicking styles. I can mimic any style. Show me a picture and I can mimic it. But I wasn't the guy who was the lead designer, but he loved the fact that I was a hard worker and I took his advice. And so I got to work at Ruby Spears and started my career working on these shows. Hubert, that's a winner. No, but I got to Don Bluth's Dragon's Lair and Space Ace, little known that it was a television series also. Cabbage Patch Kids' First Christmas. I'm proud of that one. Alvin and the Chipmunks, which I really did enjoy. I worked with the Bagdasarians, and they were very nice people. I used to go to their fancy house in Beverly Hills. We'd work on the dining table, and I'd be like, God, these old people, they're so rich and they're nice. They were like 5 years older than me. They were not old, and I just ran into them because they sold us, again, Alvin and Chipmunks came back. We bought it from them, and I looked at him, I said, you're not that much older than I am now. What happened? You used to be old, now I'm old. And you were young. And so these are the type of shows we worked on. Now the thing is that once I got my foot in the door, I didn't stop. I said, I'll do anything. And so any freelance came in, give it to me, I'll take it. My boss loved me. I was like, yeah. So things came in, a lot of product and merchandising. It was not the industry it is today. It was like, every once in a while they say, can you draw a lunchbox? And since I was an illustration major, they turned to me and said, you can do this because that's what you did in school, right? I said, mm-hmm. And I would do lunchboxes. I'd do coloring books. I would do any licensed product that come in. I'd freelance it at night and do this. So I just was not going to stop working because I'm like, I finally have a job and I'm not going to give up. And so they really loved me with that. So what happened is my boss says to me, I just got a call from someone. They're looking for a designer. I think you'd be really good for it. And I'm like, what, you want to get rid of me? He goes, no, I just think it's a really smart opportunity because you love books and toys and all of that. And he goes, here it's going to be, this is what you do. And he was very honest with me because you're really great, but the world's changing and you probably should look around and see what other things you can do. He goes, and I think this is a great opportunity. So I'm going to tell you, the next thing I'm telling you, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. You can be the most talented person in the world, and I was surrounded by them. I know a lot of guys and they don't even work today because they're so arrogant about their talent, and they don't work hard at it because it comes too easy to them. It's like the curse of the savant or the child prodigy. The problem with a child prodigy is when you're a child, you get, oh my God, you're a prodigy. Look what you can do. You can play the piano like Chopin. Then they become 21, and all of a sudden, all those kids that weren't prodigies play as well as they do. You're no longer a prodigy, you're not getting, and they start to fall apart because they haven't lived a world where they had to actually work hard and struggle to get there. So work hard, it beats the talent. And I like the fact it was an ant pushing a boulder. I thought that was cute. Anyway, so the job was, he sent me over to this guy's house, and he says, my name's Ken Forsay. I used to work at Disney Imagineering, blah, blah. I've come up with this product. It's called Teddy Ruxpin. I'm like, pronounce that again to me, Ruxpin? Because Teddy Ruxpin, I've got all these stories, and he had this bear that was, he goes, I need somebody to help me. I have to do all the books, and I have to do all the tapes, and I have to do, and he's explained to me, and I thought, oh my God. He put the tape in that bear, and it was not this bear. It was this ugly, like carnival bear with stuffing coming out of it. It looked like something from Freddy, like Freddy Krueger. It had an eyeball hanging out, and he put the tape in, and that bear went, hi, I'm Teddy Ruxpin. You want to sing with me? I'm like, okay, I will do this. So I took the opportunity, and you know, I love Mark Twain. He has a lot of great sayings, and this was a really good one. You know, you seldom see opportunity until it's past you. And I just took a chance. And Rick was again, I went to my mentor, and he's like, do it, you're young. You're young, take chances now. He goes, when you get to my age, I don't take chances. That's why I'm giving you this, telling you to take this job. They want me, but I'm not gonna go do that. I have a pension, and I've got this great gig. You're young, get out there. You're not married, you have no kids. Get out there and do it. So I took the opportunity, and it was basically my master's class and everything. We created Teddy Ruxpin, the Talking Teddy. I don't know if it was a phenomenon here, but in the States, it was a huge, huge seller. Made millions and millions of dollars in its first year. Started a company called Worlds of Wonder. And then from that, tons of other new products came out. So look, we worked with everybody at that point. So here's this 20-something-year-old kid. I don't even remember my age anymore, but the 20-something-year-old, like 5 years ago, the 20-something-year-old kid, and all of a sudden I'm thrust into this world of toys and books and tapes, and we're meeting the Disney company, and I'm going over to meet, I met all my favorites. I was doing work for the Disney company. I did work on the Talking Mickey and Goofy. I did work with the Schultz family on the Talking Snoopy and Charlie Brown. And then I got sent to New York to meet with Jim Henson and sat at a conference table with Jim Henson as we talked about the Talking Muppet Babies. And all of this, and again, as a kid, I was, oh my God, I'm with Jim Henson. And the great thing is meeting Jim Henson, and today I know his daughter really well because she runs Henson Studios. They do a lot of work. They do a lot of animation. They do Dinosaur Train and and Sid the Science Kid and a bunch of stuff. And I read and we talk about her dad and all the things because that's what you got to do. Just meet people and take it in and remember. So those were all the things. It was a master's class. We actually did animated Teddy Ruxpin, which is like 65 half hours of an animated show. It was a phenomenon. But during that time, and I thought, I am going to work here forever. We're going to make toys. This is the perfect job for me forever. I'm going to retire from this place. I'm going to put a Teddy Ruxpin on my coffin with me. I'm going to be talking. Let's die together. But that didn't happen because the company, as it went, skyrocketed up, skyrocketed down. And I got headhunted by the Disney Corporation. And now I'm like, yes, I get to work for the Disney Corporation. But they wanted me to come into the consumer products because they looked at Teddy Ruxpin and said, that should have been Winnie the Pooh. And it was just taken over by Eisner and Wells, and they had a new mission for the company. And they were going to go in there, and they're resurrecting everything. A library was going to be put out on videotape, and at that time, that was heresy. You know, you had, at that point, it was like people saying, Walt would never do this, Walt that. They had all these rules around everything. So I came into this company as this young guy, coming off a Teddy Ruxpin phenomenon. we're going to create phenomenons here. And it was hard because you had the old guard. You can't do that. You can't this and that. And they were producing, and I got put into the publishing and consumer products department. And this is the type of work they were producing. This is the way Mickey's drawn. This is the way. And as the young bucks were like, that looks like I drew it with my foot. And it looks old and dusty, and that magic book, I mean. Anyway, so our job was we had to refresh the whole catalog. And Disney makes a lot of money in publishing. They have comic books all through Europe. They have the Carl Barks series. They've got all this wealth in their library. So we start to repackage and recover. And at the beginning, and also finding artists to do it. They had no artists. Now Disney's filled with artists. But at that point, Black Cauldron failed. They had no artists really at the studio. There were no real... The industry had like browbeaten everyone down. The factory system, which is the Hanna-Barbera system, you had people that did character design, and then you had people that did coloring, and everyone was specialists, but they never talked to one another. So you had no one who could actually pull the projects together. Me coming out of Worlds of Wonder, I knew how to pull everything together. I became a producer, basically. By the way, they didn't have a name for it. They just thought I could do anything, but I tricked them. You'll do the same. But so I got there, and the first thing we said is, okay, well, there was a really great guy who drew Mickey Mouse. His name was Freddie Moore. So we went back to the library and got all of his model sheets out, and looked at every piece of that animation, and we recreated all the Mickey, and at that time, airbrushing was the soup du jour. So we said, we're going to airbrush it, and we'll put them in modern clothes, and then that's what we created. And we started updating the whole library, and that's all the way through. And we did how to draw books and everything that people would want, and we tried to create a fresh new look that looked modern, so it didn't feel like this stuff was old and dusty, and the sales took off. And Disney Publishing grew, and we grew a magazine called Disney Adventure Magazine. We started to look at things that were done in the international markets and pull them in and start doing it. And I loved it. I got this from Stephen King, that artistic talent is far more common than talent to nurture artists. The one thing I learned at Disney is I had to find artists to do all this. They didn't have them. And so first thing I thought is, I'm going to go talk to my friends who are still in animation and see if they want to freelance it, because they're all great draftsmen. And so I started digging into the animation. I met all these guys that were working at Features and at Don Bluth, and I was pulling friends in, and I'd give them book projects to work on. And one of my good friends, Ron Diaz, I don't know if anyone knows Ron Diaz, but he worked on a lot of movies, and he was a background artist and a brilliant painter. He worked for Bluth, he worked for Disney, he worked for everybody. He did all the painting for me. And he was fantastic, and so I got to figure out, you know what, I'm really about talent management, because that's my eye. I'm never going to be Ron Diaz, but I can find Ron Diaz, and I can nurture him and give him work and train him and help him become the person I need him to be for my projects. So another thing is talent management is key. You got to find the talent, you got to grow that talent, and then as company, and I'm talking to all my brethren here who have all the companies, you got to keep that talent. When they're real talent, you got to keep them, and you got to use them as best you can, because they're really hard to find. And as young people, you're the talent that we're looking for. So I got bored at Disney, believe it or not, because we were pigeonholed. Everything started to grow, and yeah, they were doing exciting things in animation, but I was like in the publishing, and it was a grind, and I was like, after Teddy Ruxpin and that, I'm like, I'm tired. I'm gonna start my own company. I'm young, I'm gonna start my own company. I started a company with a friend of mine that was from World to Wonder, and we went off and did everything. We did things for Play-Doh. We did this Michael Jordan wall ball that sold for 10 years, and I started getting royalty checks. Wow, that's nice, licensing things, and I started getting money just monthly, or every quarter would come in, I'd get a check. And I moved to the beach, had a fabulous life, but then that all collapsed. I was in a relationship that fell apart, and you know, when you're not happy at home, you're not happy anywhere, and so everything fell apart, and at that moment, when I was my darkest moment, a door opened, and I met Fred Seibert. A friend of mine said, you should talk to Fred Seibert. I don't know if you know Fred, but Fred had just become president of Hanna-Barbera. And he goes, you should go talk to him. So I had dinner with Fred, and he's like, so they made me president of Hanna-Barbera. They're going to start this network called Cartoon Network. Oh, that clever name. I bet it shows cartoons, right? He said, yeah, we're going to show the whole library. And he said, you know, the problem is I've come into this company, the Turner Company, and they all think this stuff is shit. Like, sorry for my French. Bullshit. They think it's not any good. And I said, not any good? That's my childhood. You can't. This is stuff I love. This is what I used to work on. I love this stuff. So we went to work at Hanna-Barbera, looked at all those wonderful characters. Bill and Joe were still around. So again, I got to meet my heroes, Bill and Joe. They were really fun guys. And Fred took over the studio, and he started doing the Fredisms and reinvention. This is where I learned about reinvention, and it's a really important thing. The world is about reinvention. Everything's changing, and today quicker than ever before. So you got to be ahead and thinking, what's next? What do I do? How do you change this? Because things start to homogenize, and once they're homogenous, everyone's like, oh, they look old, or it feels the same. So you got to keep on the next thing, and right or wrong, you just got to keep moving the ball forward, and that's all about reinvention. And we came into that dusty old library. We'll look at that dusty old library, because that's how, and we started reinventing it. So they did a live-action Flintstone movie with John Goodman at the time was a big star, and that movie was a big success. They did it with Universal. We did all the licensing and merchandising for it based on the cartoon characters, because I looked at it and said, nobody wants a John Goodman doll. Maybe Roseanne Barr does, but I don't want one. But I sure want a new Flintstone doll. So we made a ton of money. All of a sudden, money's pouring into the company. And then they're like, oh, Hanna-Barbera is worth something. That was a good purchase, Ted. Before that, they're like, what an idiot, he bought that library. And then Fred started a shorts program, and then the hits started coming out. Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Laboratory, Johnny Bravo, Cow and Chicken. And then Ted says, I'm starting a feature animation division. And they hire in my brain's humming right now. Anyway, they hire in a really smart person. They start running it. And actually, a lot of people at Nickelodeon actually came from this division. And they did Page Master. The only thing going, it had Macaulay Culkin. I think that was the big driving force of that. But then they did one called Cats Don't Dance. And that is a hidden gem in animation. If anyone loves animation, dig up that film. It is a hidden gem. It had a ton of talent. When you look at the talent roster, and I'm not going to tell you who's on it, but look at the talent behind it, and you're going to be very impressed because those people all went on to do big things. But they did this show, Cats Don't Dance. We start talking about the Jetsons live action feature. We start doing, and all of a sudden the world's looking good. Ted sells the company. God, my pension is going every time I turn around. I thought I had it made. I'm going to sit here with these Hanna-Barbera characters. Ted sells the company to Warner Brothers because he couldn't think. He thought, I can only get it to here, and it needs to go there. I don't think Warner's has done anything with it, but that's all what history will tell Warner's. So I went to work for Warner Brothers. They actually fired everybody, and they looked at me and, we'll keep you around. You seem to know all this stuff. I know all this stuff because I love this stuff. When you love something and have passion, you can't let it go. So I worked for the Warner Company, and I presented the first concept of the Scooby-Doo live-action film and got the studio excited. And that time, nobody at the studio it's a siloed company, so people in consumer products don't talk to the home video. And so, but our friends were all in these areas, so I just went to my friends in home video and said, look, do you want to do a Scooby project with me? And then went to my friends that had gone from Hanna-Barbera Studios over to the Warner Brothers Studios, you want to do Scooby-Doo with me? And they're like, yes, let's do it. So we all band together, our little band of friends from Turner, and we put together a Scooby-Doo animated film first, and it did really well. And then the studio said, well, we think we can do a live action. They did Scooby, and it did a lot of money. They also handed me over why Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind, the MGM library, because Turner at the time owned 60% of what Hollywood's output. They owned the MGM library, the RKO library, all these fabulous old films. Any great film that you can think about, Singing in the Rain, blah, blah, blah. Turner owned. They owned Wizard of Oz, and we went in and started repurposing this stuff. When people said, you can't, it's all the images are old and dusty, I went to the library, because I knew where the library was. I went to the library in Culver City, and we pulled out all the publicity stills that they had taken, and then we composited them with a digital company to create these new images of the Wizard of Oz that look like they're pulled from the film, but actually are used, and they still use them today for all the things. And they also, the Powerpuff Girls have blown up, so we were handling the Powerpuff Girls. So all of a sudden, I'm like, I got a pension again. And then I got bored. Because they're not a synergistic company. Every company I went into, I thought, it's going to be a company. I was looking for the next Disney, and they never could do it. They just kind of all gave up. And Warner's, they're not interested in being that. So I left because Nickelodeon came knocking up my door. But not too much with talent isn't much without passion. And that's the one thing I learned while I was there. I was super passionate about this. And I didn't want to be embarrassed anymore. You know, in the old days, not now, but in the old days when you're like, oh, I love cartoons and comic books, and they were like, are you retarded? Oh, sorry. Are you a slow child? I must have did the R word. That's so bad. I'm old, forgive me. But you got to have passion, and when you have passion, it shows, and they respect it, because you know what? Most people in their jobs have no passion. That's the one thing you're going to learn from me. I know so many people, they make a lot of money, they have no passion. I don't even know why they're in their jobs. They just happen to be in them. They lucked into them, or they, worked up the ladder to them, but they're not passionate about the stuff. They don't even like it. I know people don't even like animation. Who are these people? The reason I got in this business, the only thing that's in the world that matters is animation. And I'm going to tell you why, my theory. You can take these all as, oh, those are Russell's theories. They don't matter. But the only reason animation works, it's the only thing, only product that is made that stays with you for your lifetime. I can go to any one of you, I think you all grew up probably in the 90s. Tell me when you grew up. If you say 2000, I'm taking a machete to my neck. She's like, thank you, you're my new best friend. And I can say, oh, what did you watch as a child? You talk with passion about your childhood and the characters, and you even probably in college talk about and do drinking games around it, or whatever you do now. But that's because you carry it. Walking Dead's a flavor of the month, 3 years from now, no one's gonna be like, that Walking Dead, I loved it. Remember when and they'll be like, Walking Dead, I'm watching so-and-so on HBO. Because adults, it doesn't react, we lose all of that. But as a child, these characters mean so much to us. They're our friends, they make us laugh, they take us to places in our minds that we never thought were they stay with us forever and ever. It's the most important medium. We just get downplayed because they're all jealous of us. So I got a job at Nickelodeon. They hired me in because I had all this background. All of a sudden they're like, oh, we need somebody like that because we got all these hit shows. We got like a Rugrats and a Ren and Stimpy, and we've got all this stuff coming out. We need someone who can figure out, like, we can't just make money just selling ads. We need to like exploit it out. But we don't want to exploit it. Don't exploit it, but we want to exploit it. They had a weird thing about when I first came to the company, and it's still part of the DNA of Nickelodeon, is consumer products come second. It's not the first thing out the door. So you're not building things for consumer products. You're building a great show with great characters that resonate with the audience, and from that, consumer products will grow. And that was the philosophy, and I said, you know what? I love you, because I just came from companies that you'd go in and say, I want to do this, and they're like, yeah, my kid likes that. They didn't know. They never talked to kids. They didn't talk to their audience. Those companies today still don't talk to their audience. Warner Brothers. Oh, did I say it? The other thing I found out is this company's fantastic because they're part of Viacom, and Sumner Redstone said content is king. That's a powerful statement. It's not the television network. It's not the platform. It's not the phone, and everyone's worried about all these things. If you make fantastic content, people search it out wherever it lies, especially today. And I think Downton Abbey shows that in spades. That show really should never have worked in the U.S. But a friend of mine called me from the UK and said, you know what, you got to watch this show. It's called Downton Abbey. I said, on PBS? And they said, no, you got to watch it. So I went to the UK website, stole the codes to get in because, it's geo-blocked. So I got into it, I watched Downton, and I was hooked from the very beginning. I'd never seen that before. Not only was it everything that's wonderful, it was just wonderfully made. The characters were so dynamic, and the story was so intricate. I love this. And it turned into a big wildfire in the US. There's people that had Downton Abbey viewing parties, and it shouldn't have worked. It's on PBS. Nobody watches PBS. Well, people watch PBS, Trump. I'm just telling you, they watch it in spades. Don't cut the budget. We love Big Bird. Just in case he happens to see whatever he's in. Anyway, and they had a plethora of characters, a new product coming, and I got to work on all of it, and I had a great 18 years. I found my home. I was like, finally, now I get a pension. And I get to work on all this great stuff, and here's all the Ren and Stimpy, Backyardigans. It just kept coming. And they gave me more and more responsibility. So first I was brought in to come in and show us how to do consumer products creatively. And then there came a point after 9/11 when it was horrible. They had a point, they said, we got to do a big layoff. Can you take the promo department? I'm like, yeah, that's advertising. I used to work with 16 advertisers one time. I could certainly direct this. And so I took over the promo department. We would do interstitials in between the shows. And they were kind of just, some of it was good and some of it wasn't bad. But some of the interstitials, we decided at Christmas we should package it up like a claymation. So I got to do all this great creative takes on our characters in different medium that wasn't just the traditional look that it comes from the show. So this little piece down here is from our Christmas packaging. And as you notice, that was the first year SpongeBob was out and the first year Fairly Odd Parents. And now 16, 17, 18 years later, they're still out there playing around. I came to the, anyway, here's all the stuff. I came to the UK and I met with Aardman. I loved Aardman, and they had a character called Purple and Brown, and I had made friends, because they turned my job into global, but global meant you go to the UK and talk to them. So I went over and I met Howard Linton. I don't know if you know Howard. He's a fantastic guy, and he's like, there's this thing called Purple and Brown. I want you to look at it. And we looked at it, and I said, oh my God, how magical. Yeah, Aardman does it. I said, Aardman, my favorite company. Like, I love Wallace and Gromit. Now that's animation nerd talk, because no one else knows Wallace and Gromit. What are you talking about? Do you work on Scooby-Doo? Anyway, so we picked up and we did Purple and Brown, and it was a big hit. And it was just interstitials in between the cartoons, but it became as popular as a cartoon. So then we threw it into development. It never got out of development, but we gave it the college try to try and turn Purple and Brown into long form. But you know what? It really works as short form. But here we were doing short form way before short form was popular and YouTube even was around. So here's all the stuff we did: hotels, and theme parks, and everything. And we brought the brand to life and our properties to life. And we did movies. We were connected to Paramount Studios. They started doing movies, and they did Series of Unfortunate Events and Jimmy Neutron. And Jimmy Neutron's a perfect show that, you know, they did the show and the movie at the same time, developed. And so the movie released, the show released right afterwards, and there was interstitials on the air in short form that promoted up to the movie, but we're actually introducing the audience to the show that they're gonna see when they got back. It was a really smart, I wish I had come up with it, but I didn't. Albie Heck came up with it, but it was really brilliant, and he was a brilliant man. And again, another person I use as a mentor, because I'm like, this guy's smart. I'm gonna use you as a mentor. I have Fred and you, I'm gonna be flying high. And then all of a sudden our company started to change, and anyway. So basically, talent is king. Content used to be king, but talent is king now. And talent is everywhere. The one thing I brought into when I took over the studio, when they gave me the studios, I said, you know what, Hollywood is not the hub of all the most talented people in the world. I've traveled the world, and I've met really talented people. And that's why I'm so happy to be here in Ireland, because I've seen, Ireland is, and I know because you're here, and when you're in the mix, you're kind of like, oh, we're Irish, we're sitting here, it's, you know, got a nice day. But Ireland is so, I drank my Guinness. But Ireland is such an important part of our history of animation. You know, it used to be nothing, and then Don Bluth came over, and he came in and dabbed his toe and ran. But now, look, you've got an industry growing, and just like I was when I first started, and there's 3 studios, there's no work, it's gonna grow and grow and grow, because it has to, and you're gonna make it grow. You're the generation that's growing this. You know, we're coming of age where we can only go so far. You're the next generation. You're gonna grow Ireland into one of the most premier animation providers to the world, and I believe that, and that's why I'm standing here today, to encourage you and to get you to think about the future, not about your day-to-day, the future of what Irish animation is, what it means, and what you can provide, so that, you know what, you give Hollywood a little bit of a run for its money. You know, I'm tired of talking with the Pixar guys and the Illumination. The animals talk. You know how many times I was pitched that idea about talking animals? I should have bought it. Anyway, so I went on, and they came to a part, the ratings dropped through the roof, everything. We were like, and my boss at that time, Seema Zargami, looked at me, and she's like, it's horrible, and she's crying about the ratings. And I said, our content sucks. Not to be blunt, but everything good's gone. I mean, you've run the sockets off of it, and the only thing left that's still going is SpongeBob. Give me the reins. This is where I came from. And I was begging for the animation studio. She goes, I'm giving you all of the West Coast. You're taking over live action. And I came out for live action. Oy. And I came out there, and she says, you're now president of development and production. And the thing I noticed, there was no pipeline, there was no talent, there was nothing. So I started talent outreach. I started a writers program. It's an international writers program. If you're a writer here and you want to get into the industry and you kind of are stumbling around, you can submit a script to Nickelodeon in the UK. It's actually global, so they share it all together. And then you are sent to the US for a 6-week program in which you sit and go to every production, and you sit in their writer's room and you learn to write. At the end, you actually produce a script. Now, there's only 4 to 5 candidates a year, but if you're a writer, it's worth your time to do a spec script to try and get into that program. But my belief was always about finding talent, growing talent and keeping that talent. But we had nobody in the studio, so we just opened the doors to every college. We did college outreach, and we still do college outreach. Writers program, artist program. We hired great people. Jill's here. I don't know where you are. There she is over there. We had Jill. We stole her from Disney. There were great people. Another thing, there were great people in the studio when I got there that had great ideas, but no one was listening to them. They were just like voices in the dark saying, well, we need to do this. And so all I did was listen and take the best of the best and start putting those programs together and recreating the studio pipeline. Because at the end of the day, it's really hard to start up a pipeline. So, and the way it works is you get a couple of shows going, and then you start farming from those shows, because every show has 50 talented people sitting there, and you want to farm because now you have them in your studio grass. Instead, they're usually, you know, it's a dog war out there. They're not with us. They're at Disney or cartoons. So we did a whole talent nurturing and farming, whole creative. Creative was first, as it was. That's our history. Nickelodeon's history was creator-driven cartoons. John Kricfalusi started it. He was the first person who ever did it. Today, everyone talks about creator-driven. They were the first ones with Ren and Stimpy. He came out of Mighty Mouse for CBS and started Ren and Stimpy. It was the first creator-driven cartoon, and from that came Rugrats and Doug. Three brilliant, with Klasky Schupo and Doug, and then Hey Arnold, and then they're all creator-driven. The philosophy is a creator at the center, a person with a vision who knows what's right or wrong and what the script should be, and then they bring it to life with a studio that wraps around it and supports them with a nurturing. So we brought that all back to life. And we got hit shows out of it. Henry Danger is now the #1 show. They're doing an animated version of it. We had some that were not so big a hits, but they were, you have to do. You don't know. You get a pitch. Haunted Hathaway sounded fantastic. It was the Brady Bunch with ghosts. I'm like, this sounds like a great idea. I'd watch that. But, you know, it only got so far. Sam and Cat was from Dan Schneider. He wanted to bring Sam from iCarly and Cat Valentine from Victorious and put them in a show together. And it worked for about 34 episodes, and they had a meltdown. But that's a whole nother, that's for the book. And Bella and the Bulldogs, about a girl who is the star quarterback of her football team, and then partnership with Paramount with School of Rock, and a lot of more. And in animation, we really turned on the pipeline, and we started a shorts program where we did shorts, and then we cut the development to shreds. We said, no longer are we making pilots. We're just going to do shorts and animatics, and we're going to make our decisions from that. And we picked up, you know, Sanjay and Craig was there, and Pig Goat Banana Craig was kind of hiding in the wings. And since they had nothing, there was nothing there. There was no talent. We just had such few things in development. You had to take the choice of what you had. And so we started making the choices. And with these great shows came in new talent. And out of that new talent, we got, Welcome to the Wayne, Loud House, Harvey Beaks. Harvey Beaks is a really wonderful little show. Sanjay and Craig, Pig Goat Banana Craig. The list goes on, and the pipeline was full, and it's full to this day. So there's a lot of great stuff that's coming out. We also did movies for television, 44-minute movies that were, their first original was called Albert, about a Christmas tree who dreams of being the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree and makes the trek from Vermont down to the city. I had to Google it 6 times and do so much research to make sure that story hadn't been told before, because I'm like, really? That's such a duh. But see, they never told it. And these 2 guys pitched it in, and they were Jewish too. And I'm like, really? A Christmas story? I love you guys. I had to explain what a Christmas tree was. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so we kicked it into high gear. And I built it off of the idea of yes, if. Now that's something I learned. I'm not going to take credit from it. I learned that from the Disney people. They believe in this philosophy, and it's from Walt. Yes, if is better than no, because no is the first word you hear when you're a child. Your parents always tell you, no, don't touch that, no, don't do that, don't do that, don't, no, 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 no. And it's an easy word for us. It's also a control word. If you tell me something and I say no, I'm in control. I didn't even have to do anything. I'm just giving you my opinion. No. No. It's my new word, no. But if you say yes, it's a word that's a passive word. It means I think that you, yes, do that. But the if part is, but here's my concerns. And it's about communication. And I think it's such a powerful tool to communicate clearly and articulately to one another when it comes to creative. Because yes is the growth tool. If you pitch me an idea, I'm going to say yes, but here's my concerns. If you can overcome these 5 things. And you're going to walk away and you're going to be like, yeah, those are actually, I see what he's talking about. I didn't kill your idea. And you know what kills an idea? Itself. It either grows and becomes what it needs to be, or it deflates and all of a sudden you see all the holes of why it doesn't work. It just kills itself. It also allows for the best ideas to float up instead of someone giving their personal opinion about a product. We're not the judge and jury of this stuff. The audience is. I was in a company where SpongeBob was, really, that wasn't the one they were banking on. That was like, oh, that's weird. We can't, the Adventure Time, worst tested show in Nickelodeon history. That's why it was given up. The only reason it ended up on Cartoon Network is because Fred Seibert, we all worked at Turner, and he ran Hanna-Barbera, so he used all his contacts, said, you need to do this show, and they said yes. And that's where they got Adventure Time. Those are the stories. It's the word yes. We should have just done it. We don't know. Nobody knows. We're not crystal ball, I don't know. But you know when it's good characters and good stories. And all you need to keep thinking about is your characters. Do they have a human truth to them? People watch SpongeBob not because it's funny and really fun. Sometimes it's like stupid funny, but it's funny. But when you really dig down, there's a psychological toll in there. Mr. Krabs is obsessed with cash and money and making money and money. He's greedy. It's the 7 deadly sins. Plankton's evil, Patrick's sloth. He's fat and he's stupid, but he's SpongeBob's best friend. And SpongeBob's the innocent in this world where he has to deal with all this negativity and stay positive. And so that's why that works. It works on an emotional level. The same with Harry Potter. Every great story works on an emotional level that hits inside of us and makes us think we're like that person. So yes, if is the way you should lead your life. So you're probably like, well, now what is he doing? So after 18 years and fighting for a lot of things, I thought, you know what? I started out in animation and drawing, and I've had tons of ideas, and I'm always there making other people's stuff good, and I'm always helping these people make tons and tons of money. I'm not doing it for the man anymore. I'm going to leave. I'm going to take my knowledge and bring it to the world. And so I've started my own company with a partner. It's called Curiosity, Inc. It's not about us, so this will never be a brand. You won't see this logo on anything. It's just a holding company in which we will work with people who have IP to help them plan their IP and move it into all that can be. I'm a big believer that if you have a good idea, sometimes the idea actually falls apart when it's immediately done into a television series or done into a movie. And it should have started somewhere else, like publishing, and allow it to grow into those things, but always planning that I want to be there. And putting that at the very beginning, putting all the DNA at the very beginning, so when you get to the end, you're not struggling like, oh, well, it's not toyetic. It can't work in toys. It doesn't work in... You've already thought it through that it can work in all these other platforms because today's kid wants it in everything. They want short form and long form. They want this and they want that. They want to bring the character into their life and play with the toy and read the books at home with their mom and dad. And they want to do, or their mom and dad. But that's what they want. They're no longer just one little thing. You want to be everywhere. And when something's not everywhere, the audience wonders, like, well, is it popular? Because you know where they've been trained? All those Disney movies, right? There's not a Disney movie. Even that Inside Out had toys. Just saying. I want sadness, Mommy. Sadness is my character. I just want to love sadness and hold sadness and give sadness a place to sleep. Anyway, I'm done. This is what we're doing. We're going to be a media company. I love that. We're going to be all this jargon, blah, 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 but mostly brand management. And we're going to bring properties back from the dead, things that are so great and loving and wonderful things. And we're going to bring them back for a new audience. And we're going to help people with ideas who have great ideas become bigger than, and not leave it up to the big companies to take your idea and squander the opportunity because they think they know better, because they don't. I've been inside all of them. They don't know any better. They're making a guess at it. And so the people we're going to partner with are going to go in with the tools and the information and the power to be in control of their brand and not allow it to be squandered. And I got this idea because one of the projects I picked up was called Mutton Stuff from Sid and Marty Krofft. They hadn't been in the business for 20 years, but I love Marty Krofft and Sid and Marty Krofft, and I loved HR Puff and stuff. And when Marty particularly said, I want that show. It's got dogs and a kid. I'm in. It's like Scooby-Doo, but had really talented dogs. And they took all the rights to it, and now today he's like, why haven't they done any licensing? The thing's filled, you see it, it's filled with opportunity. It's just not filled with the same opportunity as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So if it can't make $100 million, why put the resources against something that only makes $10 million or $20 million? And you don't want to be in that world. That's a bad place to be because it doesn't make $100 million. Very few things make $100 million in licensing royalties a year. Big ticket items, and they don't stay there. And you see them giving up, like, oh, it's the curve's going down, let's give it up. No, kids aren't buying it anymore, dump it. Instead, things go on a roller coaster through life, and you got to reinvent them, and you got to reinvigorate them. That's why all those words are up there during my presentation, because those are the key to keeping things alive. So that's my story. There's no time, or there's no next time, no timeouts, no second chances, and sometimes it's now or never. And so I chose it's now or never for me. I wanted to go back to my roots. I wanted to draw again. I wanted to be with the artists. I love artists. I love talent. Talent management's my favorite thing, and I want to do it for myself and the talent, not for big corporations. So I took the plunge, started this company with one of my really close friends, so I know he went. And, by the way, this presentation was brought to you by Guinness. And I thank you all for listening to me.